Hey everyone, this is Nitro. So today's video will be doing more Apex Arena reviews, and just give me a moment to get the few things configured because I was a little bit late due to a battle in Apex Arena. Finished just in time, in fact, and I was actually playing on my tablet. Didn't realize the time was, well, it was time for my stream. So just doing the final configuration here, and then we'll get started. So yeah, I mean, I played one more match today. Actually, I think played two more matches, sorry. Two matches, one loss to Desulife, one win against Alandite, and yeah, so my point is back up to 1970, which nearly back up to my 1996 or whatever points I had previously. Good morning. So let's see how this goes. Alright, so I'm just going to get started with some of these match reviews. Okay. So where did I cut off last time? I think I cut off around a bit further down. Okay, so I'm just going to go over this battle first against LoliNEET, and it's just going to go over the initial part of it because LoliNEET played his Ares very, very well. Right? We saw a whole bunch of matches where I'm constantly facing against Ares, and most of the time those Ares just suicide into my lines, and then it's a free kill. So this match, even though LoliNEET lost, he lost because of bad luck, truthfully speaking. So let's just demonstrate this. So I'm not really going to go over the pick ban phase. Let's just skip it because I just wanted to, the main demonstration here is the proper use of Ares that he did. Okay, so my party ended up being Landius with Gizarof, with Wilder, Omega, and Liena. Right? Since my faction buffs were pretty terrible, I brought Strengthen on my Wilder, and Liena as always has Gospel to Gospel up my Landius. My opponent has Yusuke, which can also buff up Deedlit, Landius, Ares, and then Iris. So the only character that's not buffed for him is Iris. And actually, Iris has very, very low skill. So very vulnerable to my Omega, in other words. Alright, so let's get started here. Right? So here we go. So the initial maneuvering consists of just, as usual, positioning together, you know, staying in guard range, all that kind of usual stuff. Now Yusuke activates his Demon Domination. Oh, side note, I forgot this myself, but the time and space faction buff does affect Iris. Okay. So Iris is actually faction buffed as well. In other words, his whole party is properly buffed, unlike mine, which only has, I guess, Landius buffing himself and Wilder, Gizarof buffing himself, and then Liena and Omega don't have any kind of buff. Good night. Alright, so now, you know, characters are pretty much positioned accurately, and now I do have my Landius move forward a bit. Okay. Not too afraid because I know that Ares' Fearless Hurricane gives 4 additional mobility, right? So if he moves up here, 4 mobility is just over here, and that would only be able to attack Omega. I mean, I suppose he could have used Ares to attack my Liena and kill her off, but I consider that a very acceptable trade. If he wishes to suicide Ares for me to kill off, for Liena, that's a trade I'm perfectly willing to make. And in the first place, I don't think he can actually kill me off because I had high stakes up and running. So he doesn't make that move, you know, hangs back, activates his guard skills, faction buff, and so on. And here, I'm just continuing to drop summons. Right, so both sides are basically setting up, and now I strengthen my Omega for his attack. So his positioning currently has his Iris completely blocked from attack, right? That's why he placed Yusuke here. And as for these other characters, they all have high enough skill so that my Omega doesn't actually 2 times their skill. So I can't attack any of these 3 because Landius will guard it. The only character that I could attack and kill is Iris. So in the meantime, I just maneuver forward, inching up. Right? And he runs. And this is where it gets very interesting. Okay, so I have Omega, range attack, the Landius, since I saw Iris had already moved, and so has Deedlit. Here, he uses Fearless Hurricane, runs forward, and Wind Whispers. Out of range of my Omega, so that my Omega is left where he is, while my other characters are teleported. Okay? I got lucky. Landius ended up on this spot, which guards Omega. The point is, if Landius got teleported into any of the other 3 spots, Omega was not guarded. And then Yusuke could have killed off my Omega, just like that. So this was some seriously big brain power on his part. Could I have avoided that? Of course. Like, for example, if I had moved Wilder first, then moved Omega to attack, then he couldn't have had Ares attack and follow up with Yusuke, right? Or probably not. So there were maneuvers I could have done, like moved my other characters first before moving Omega to attack. So he saw a little mistake that I made, a small mistake, but he took advantage of it. And unfortunately, the odds didn't favor him. Well, he just got unlucky, right? He had a 75% chance of teleporting Landius into any of these other 3 spots, in which case my Omega was dead, and he probably won. But since my Landius teleported to the right spot, Omega is guarded, and now he's basically in trouble because his Ares is dead. Right? So, through no fault of his own, his Ares ended up being a suicide strike. Which is kind of unfortunate, because he really did outplay me there. But that is part of Apex Arena. There is a big luck element to all of this. And now at this point, I can easily finish off this Ares, turning this into a 5 against 4, where his Iris has to totally hang back because of my Omega. So at this point, the battle's basically over. It takes me quite a few more turns to finish him off because, double healer, Yusuke is a pain, and so on and so forth. But the battle was over. So that was just a, he frankly outplayed me. He just got unlucky there. But that was an interesting point to show because that is the right use of Ares, forcing that teleportation to mess up the enemy formation, at which point you can exploit the formation that has been destroyed. So LoliNEET really understands how to use Ares properly. Alright? So that's the first battle I want to go over, because that's how Ares is supposed to be used, not the way everyone has been using him, and it drives me crazy, seeing all the improper use of Ares. Alright, so this next battle will be demonstrating Listell. I mean, everyone knows Listell is very, very overpowered, but she's so rarely played that I thought I would mention this battle, simply because she almost never appears. Right? So, interestingly enough, I still continue to see people ban my Zerida first. Okay, it's probably because I do have quite a few Meteor faction characters, and Zerida is quite deadly, right? Omega, Hiei, Juggler are all Meteor faction, so it's not like it's a bad thing to ban Zerida first, but it still surprises me, I have to say. In any case though, I banned the opponent Juggler, he bans my Zerida, right? I now ban Claret and Mystery Knight, and play my Landius. So, Wilder and Yusuke are now banned, and he plays Leon. Surprising to me. A second pick Leon is not very uncommon. So I ban his Wilder and Iris now, getting rid of 2 healers, and I play Liana. Right. Juggler and Hiei are now banned, and my opponent plays Zerda at this point. Okay. So I banned Liana and Deedlit, so I've gotten rid of all of his healers as a result, because he chose to play Zerda. And I now follow up with Listell. So I lose Deedlit and Bozel now at this point, and he plays Joshua, so a faction buff, right? Zerda faction buffs up Joshua, so Joshua can bring multiple AoE attacks. So I get rid of Hiei and Leonhard at this point, leaving him the choice of Luna and Bozel. I play Illustrial, okay, and I lose Luna and Iris at it, and my opponent plays Luna instead of Bozel. Interesting pick there. I didn't quite understand that one, to be perfectly honest. But I end up playing Gizarof rather than Omega. It might be his Bozel doesn't have enough skill, and so he didn't want to risk it against my Omega, because a low skill Bozel is basically a sacrifice for Omega to kill. So this is one of the things I should mention. Illustrial actually really counters Zerda surprisingly well, unless Zerda acts on turn 1 like that and activates Breeze. It's because Illustrial has ridiculously high mobility due to her talent, right? Being able to pass through terrain like this, pass through defensive terrain. So her mobility is not just 5, it's very long. So due to the Breeze activation though, I have to retreat this first turn. So I just start maneuvering backwards. In the first place, I don't really need to push. He's the one that has to, because he has no healer. And I activate Breeze as well on my Illustrial. So quickly going to pause this here. He now uses Wind God Realm to buff up the mobility of Zerda. And that also explains why he used Luna, right? The Wind God Realm for the extreme mobility to allow his party to get into range quickly, right? So right now, you can see my Illustrial can get into range to attack the enemy Zerda, but so can the enemy Zerda attack me. So I'm just maneuvering back. Right? And I have no choice but to act again my Illustrial to get her out of range due to that Wind God Realm meta. So the only characters I left in range as a result are now Listell and Landius. These two alone. Right. Problem is, Zerda has an insane amount of range. So due to that Breeze activation plus Wind God Realm. Would have been fine if he didn't activate Breeze, but now I'm kind of in trouble. Right. So for now, I maneuver the two characters I know who can survive Zerda's strike, Listell and Landius forward. He continues to move up, his other characters, and this is how I countered the Zerda. I had Gizarof drop his construct in front. This now creates a block against Zerda reaching any of my characters. So now, suddenly, only one character can be attacked, whoever I place right there. So, and he's also forced to move, so he moves Zerda, and so I maneuver my characters in at this point. Since the enemy Zerda did not activate Breeze this time around, I can afford to move a bit forward like this. So now, everyone is still alive and well. So, the Gizarof construct saving me, absolutely saving me. If not for that, Zerda would have absolutely killed off one of my characters. And I would have been in a lot of trouble. So now, the second pick Leon, Chivalry, the 3C skill, and Blue Dragon Strike. Doesn't kill anyone because my Landius is ridiculous. Right? So once again, the crazy enchants on Landius made him just completely tank that hit and tank the Blue Dragon Strike AoE. Even though this Leon has 1711 attack. I think he's used to having his Leon just one strike, one shot enemy tanks, but it can't do that against my Landius. Another example of why building up your tank is so important. Right? Getting really, really good enchants in your tank is clutch. If you don't want to roll as many enchants as I did for Thorns, just roll a full moon on your Landius. So, moving on. So, Liana now casts Prayer, heals up everybody. He is absolutely going after my Liana now. So, there is the single target strike, and I retaliate by killing off that Leon that was heavily damaged with Gizarof. And I just toss out an AoE with Gizarof again because I don't think I'm gonna be able to launch it again later. I want to use single target strikes with my Gizarof. So he sent Luna in and struck my my Landius and managed to silence him with the Cursed Lance. Cannot heal yourself, cannot use active skills. So that actually kind of hurts. So my retaliation was to have Illustrial single target strike the enemy Zerda. Surprisingly to me, I actually ended up dying while he lived. Okay. So this is with my Illustrial having the plus 20 attack buff and plus 20% defense buff. And I was using Onrush for an extra 30% defense and magic defense. But his Zerda managed to kill me and I managed to die. That was a big surprise to me, seriously. After I did, I really was shocked here. I had an attack skill, he didn't. I had my last rites, he didn't because of Daybreak, and he still won. So that was bizarre. In any case though, it happened, nothing I can do about it, so the battle continues. At the very least, this Zerda is heavily damaged. So it just has to move back and try to heal from its meteor faction buff. In the meantime, I have Listell join in and toss out Mindborn. So now that it's healed a little, it now goes after my Liana and finishes it off. I have my own Construct finish off this Zerda now. So, Construct, having taken down 2 characters now at this point. First finishing off the damaged Leon, now finishing off the damaged Zerda. And Gizarof jumps in and attacks the enemy Landius. And with the Hellfire Archers, does some extra damage. My Construct now gets killed by Joshua, but does a good amount, or doesn't even get killed by Joshua, sorry. It gets attacked by Joshua, but doesn't die. And the reason for that is because it has this buff, Intermediate Strengthening Component. Damage dealt increased by 30%, damage taken reduced by 30%. Okay. So, Intermediate Strengthening Component, keeping my Construct alive. It just shows how incredible these constructs are once they start getting buffs. So, you know, having Gizarof attack multiple targets with Dark Dragon's Breath and so on is just making this construct stronger and stronger. Alright, so now Listell jumps in with a Blood Dance, silencing all of them. Fixed damage, kills off kills off Joshua, kills off Landius for the first time. And Luna is left with 23 hit points. Game over. So he runs away. Yep. Gizarof has been winning me match after match to get me into Langrisser rank. Like, especially the constructs. It's honestly been kind of ridiculous how that's been working out. So yeah, that was one example of. Ultimately it was a combination of almost everything, right? Gizarof played a huge role here. Listell with that final Blood Dance played a big role, so on and so forth. And so I can't wait to see when, Gizarof gets his 3C, which is next month, as B Guy said. I'm going to skip the pick ban win, right? I'm gonna do a few more of these Gizarof battles first before I jump back to these Omegalulz battles. How about that? So let's cover the next Gizarof battle. I kind of want to highlight Gizarof because there's been people saying Gizarof is bad. Alright, so here, pick ban, let's see. Very meta box once again. You know, Claret, Knight of Mysteries, Listell, Hiei, Yusuke. Totally meta. Like this, you can't get more meta than this box, really. The only change you might make is replace Rachel. But even then, Rachel, Deedlit, and Liana for Gospel is a pretty it's a pretty powerful combo. So this is like as meta as you can get, this box right here. So I ban Juggler, I lose, and surprisingly, I get my Landius banned. It doesn't happen very often. It's usually Landius banned, right? So enemy plays Landius. I ban Claret and Mystery Knight, as is common, and play my Juggler. Right. Enemy bans my Zerda and Deedlit, and plays Deedlit. Alright. So I ban Wilder and Listell now, right? Getting rid of all the characters who are faction buffed by Landius. And I play my own Wilder. Luna and Yusuke are banned. Enemy plays Zerda. Pretty common. I mean, totally expected. I now ban Bozil and Hiei, right? I don't want 2 assassins, and I don't want Bozil buffing up Zerda. And I play Gizarof. Omega and Bozil are now banned, which is very, very common for me. Yeah. Whenever I play Gizarof, I almost always see Bozil and Omega get banned right away. Enemy plays Yusuke at this point, so Yusuke can now buff Deedlit. So I now ban Luna and Iris. I don't want either mobility buffer in play to give Zerda and Deedlit all that mobility. And so I play Illustrial once again. And this is a good map for it. Plains of Strife is arguably one of the best maps for Illustrial. And so finally I lose Hiei and Listell. And the opponent plays Liana. Player 1 Liana is not exactly ideal in my opinion, but it works. At the very least, it's probably a better choice than Rachel, who can get one-shotted by Illustrial. And so I play Liana as well. Right. Usually Zerda still gets banned in second ban worthy. She's usually worth banning second. I'm not afraid of Zerda, but that's due to my box. It really depends on your box, honestly. But yeah, Zerda is definitely a second ban worthy, especially in the lower tiers when you don't have very, very good enchants. I can generally manage to deal with Zerda because of, Gizarof with his summon, Liana can potentially bring summons, and so on. And I have a bunch of characters who cannot get one-shotted by Zerda. So it depends on your box. In any case, so maneuvering Illustrial forward, that was actually a little bit of a risk because by moving her forward like this, if he activated like this, I'm actually in range. Okay. So I actually misjudged it a bit. I thought I could completely force Zerda back and be out of range. I didn't. Totally didn't. Nonetheless, I am forcing him back, at the very least. And I just faction buff up to start. He uses Gospel on Zerda, which is kind of weird because Zerda already faction buffed. Didn't really get that one. Oh, I remember now. The reason why I moved Illustrial aggressively like this is because of Wilder. With high stakes, I was pretty confident he cannot kill my Illustrial in one shot. That's why I did that. I remember now. Yep. Because once again, high stakes with the buffs of 15% damage reduction taken, with me having last rights, I thought I could probably survive Zerda's attack. I think that was the logic behind that. In the meantime, I just try to protect her. Just in case, I try to protect her. Move Giz, although it doesn't actually protect her because of the positioning. Well, in any case, finally the strengthen on the Illustrial. Here comes Zerda. Here comes the healing. And there's the death. So yeah, I thought I could survive and I didn't. Well, so be it. It ends up being a Zerda trade for Illustrial, basically. So trading one character for another. Now it's kind of okay with that. Ultimately. Focus on healing up my tank and Wilder now. And then due to having my Wilder's high stakes, Yusuke really doesn't do much. So at this point, it's pretty much a battle between whether he can kill my tank or not. Right? I probably made a mistake here. Okay. I charged forward and used my AoE. Okay. And I felt this was probably a mistake because while I locked down the tank, I didn't lock down anyone in the poison. So let's just pause this for a second. I think the other reason I did that though was because I saw that this Liena doesn't have prayer. So it has heal. So it could heal the tank, but it can't heal characters, just heal one character and that's it. I think that's the other reason. That, and I want to take maximum advantage of while Desperate Prayer was still up. So there were reasons why I charged in like this. But it does mean I can't lock them into poison anymore. So for now, they're locked all the way back. Gizarof runs forward, launches out an AoE. Construct charges up, doesn't attack, and unfortunately, Yusuke barely survives but lives. Okay. Once this is when my Gizarof only had 1344 int. So if I had a bit more int, once again, if this was a 6-star Gizarof, this construct would have killed Yusuke. So, due to this not being a 6-star Gizarof, the intelligence of the construct was not quite high enough, and so Yusuke didn't die. The other aspect of this is I don't think I got I didn't get the ideal buffs on my construct. If I had, let's say, 30% increased damage or 40% increased damage, once again, Yusuke would have been dead. So a little bit of combination, some bad luck with the buffs, and just the construct, as a result, didn't do enough damage to Yusuke to kill him. So he gets to use Sea of Miracles as a result and heal up Yusuke. And Elven Aura is used here, but my Prayer is still up. Thorns doing quite a bit of damage to Deedlit, but not quite enough to kill her, unfortunately. So I try to have Wilder jump in to attack, to try to kill. Just can't. So this was an unfortunate aspect. Survival due to lack of stats or star levels. It is what it is. So I continue to I use Act again here because I see that he can still have 2 characters act. And I healed up my juggler a bit that way. And this is a little interesting part. Okay. So, Gizarof. Because my Gizarof is pure demon, right? He himself is demon class and the Hellfire Archers are demon. I did what, 220 damage to Yusuke? Absolutely nothing at all. Oh, this is another reason why the construct didn't get any buffs, as a side note. At this battle, what I think was before Gizarov's exclusive was available. Because I'm doing multiple attacks with Gizarof, but the construct is not getting any additional buffs. So that's another reason why the construct didn't kill Yusuke at this time. Yep. But yes, Demon Gizarof is primarily for the constructs. Better stats on the construct. That's what it is for. Alright, so let's continue. So he gets time to reconfigure and set up. I just have Juggler attack at this point. And Deedlit charges in to try to strike my Juggler. Can't kill her. Can't kill him. So it's still working out. And this is because I still do have the buffs, right? Faction buff, Great Dragon Barrier, Triton. So Deedlit cannot one-shot my Juggler, even with a melee strike. So now it's time to focus on healing up Juggler. So now let's range attack Yusuke, weaken him some more. Right? And I continue to try to focus on Yusuke to take him out. And Gizarof here activates his faction buff. And finally, I basically formed a line with my heroes. So the reason for this is now he has Yusuke activate the transformation state, right? Psychic Eruption. But Deedlit is dead, trapped in the poison. So it ended up being that by aggressively pushing in Juggler early on, like this, he's totally trapped. I'm actually not, I don't think I even had Swordsmith at this point. Yeah, I don't have a Swordsmith at this point. This is a 4 movement Juggler. At this point, I was still using the, Divine Boots for 4 movement. So this was still a 4 movement Juggler. And as long as he had the faction buff, he could still tank a Deedlit strike. So, Construct continues to attack Yusuke, trying to kill it off. Right? It barely lives. Barely, barely, barely. Look at that. 604 hit points. So, I'm actually pretty certain at this point my Gizarof was still 4 stars. Just as a side note. 4 stars without his exclusive. But despite that, he's actually quite tanky. Look at that. An attack from Landius. A full hit point Landius. Gizarof tanked that. Okay. So I just regroup him. Right, heal him up dramatically. My opponent uses Act again. He's trying to force my Gizarof to die. Long story short, right? Or that's what I thought. So, but instead he chooses to take out my Construct and protect Yusuke. So I just summoned a new one. Construct dead, new Construct created. Let's have it start weakening Liena. So Deedlit strikes Gizarof, but since Gizarof was at full hit points again, no problem. And Deedlit is forced to death. So now it's 4 against 3. Yusuke strike, Dark Tincture, and that time I didn't have Gospel up because I just had Liena attack Deedlit, right? So due to that, Juggler cannot be healed. So that attack on Deedlit was actually a mistake. Right now I can't heal my Juggler. So I run him away. No choice, right? Otherwise he's gonna die. And that allows him to kill off my Gizarof. But even though Gizarof died, a new construct is created. So now I have 2 constructs in play. And this time around, both constructs have 2 range. Okay, one has. Yeah. In the meantime, I'm using Act again on my Juggler because I'm trying to get rid of that cannot be healed debuff. And now he tries himself. So move the constructs, and finally, I have Waller's Suicide. Okay, as his last action, he casts Strengthen on Liena, and the Suicide is so that my Juggler now has has high stakes buff, right? I had no way to heal him, and my opponent was acting first. So the only way I could keep my Juggler alive was to sacrifice Waller, so that he has Desperate Prayer. So now, I have Juggler, Beast Shock, Liena. And the reason Beast Shock was available again was because of Swan Song, right? Gizarof's faction buff. So it refreshed it, made it available much earlier, as opposed to that 5-turn cooldown. So for now, taking down Liena. So 2 range attacks from these constructs. Liena has been killed. So the combination of Gizarof's faction buff, Gizarof's constructs, right? Combined with Beast Shock, let me take down Liena. And now he's also trapped in the poison with his Landius. So he definitely, he counted the turns properly. He knew I didn't have Beast Shock, but he forgot to factor in Gizarof's faction buff. No. Dark Tinker's block is not dispellable. You either have to make yourself immune to it, or you have to get rid of it by, acting twice. It's actually quite annoying to deal with as a result. So, Yusuke strikes my Juggler, right? Desperate Prayer, keeping him super healthy. And now, Construct. Construct number 1 attacks Yusuke, dies, but takes out most of those Zealots. Construct number 2 attacks Yusuke. And then Landius will die for the first time, I think. Right here. Yep. And I have Juggler finish off Yusuke. I do die, but I felt it was worth it, because at this point, Liena can range attack and finish off Landius. So there we go. Gizarof completely won me this match, right? Gizarof's constructs, Gizarof's faction buff, what else needs to be said? Even when he died, he created 2 constructs, and then those constructs wiped out Yusuke for me, pretty much. So, another example of Gizarof being basically OP. So, that's what's another Gizarof match. Here is a third one, the Gizarof trap against Caniac. So, here, let's see, Juggler gets banned. Juggler really should be banned. Otherwise, his teleportation forward is a nightmare to deal with. So that's why I've always been banning Juggler first now, instead of Zerida. And here, I looked at Caniac's party, and it's like, it's time and space. Tons of time and space. Kurama, Estelle, Sumire, Leonhard, Hiei, Sakura, Yusuke, Rene, Iris, Chloe. So I just focused on banning faction buffers first. So I got rid of Joshua to start. Played my Landius. And Listell and Zerida are banned on my side. He plays Yusuke. Faction buff, right? For his time and space party. So I get rid of damage dealers now. Right? Hiei and... oh my god. What's his name? Kurama. No. JJ, in that battle, my Gizarof was actually 4 stars. So, he was 4 stars and he won me the match. The constructs were very, very weak at that point. That's why they kept dying. Yes, Juggler is an enabler of rush tactics. So I really say ban him if you can. So, moving on. Wyler. Right. Luna and Yusuke are banned. Enemy plays Zerida. Surprising to me. But when I looked at it again, he has so many tanks. Landius, Juggler, Estelle, Sumire. Right? So he can afford to keep picking damage dealers first instead of tanks. So there I get rid of Sakura and Juggler first. Right? And I play Liena. So Omega and Hiei are now banned on my side. And he plays Landius as his tank. Alright, so I get rid of Sumire and Rene. And play Deedlit. Bozal, Illustrial ban, right? So I pretty much have my usual setup of Landius, Wyler, Liena, but I do have Deedlit this time around. And now I'm left with Gizarof or Iris. Yeah, as B-Guy has said, very few people ban Gizarof because most of the other characters are bigger threats than him. So he plays Leonhard, AoE attacker. So I'm kind of weirded out by his picks so far, right? Single target striker, AoE attacker, and then I'm not sure, and then he really should pick a healer at this point, right? So I just banned Liena and Iris, 2 of the healers, leaving him Chloe as the remaining healer. And on my side, I play Gizarof, of course, because I already have 2 healers. And my opponent plays Chloe. the only remaining healer for him. So, another battle with Gizarof, featuring Gizarof, I should say. So he has Leonhard with Dark Centurions, Lancer Soldiers, Infantry Leonhard, right? Zerda with Bandits, Landius with Cavalry, and Chloe has the Phalanx Soldiers as well. So I knew he would do that, so I have Guardian Infantry. These are not fully leveled yet, that's why they only have a 36% defense increase, but I knew he was going to be playing a lot of Lancer Soldiers. So with this, I'm not really afraid of Leonhard anymore, because the Dark Centurions won't do much to me at all. And Chloe, even if she uses the Discipline attack, it's going to be wasted mostly into my Guardian Infantry. Yes, Pash, my strategy has been unkillable tank strategies in general. It works out pretty well for me. So, maneuvering forward. Deedlit will be gospeling up herself. And I don't activate high stakes yet since I saw he didn't use his teleport or instant transfer on Leonhard. I actually used Act again on Gizarof because I guess I wanted to get the summon out as quick as possible. That was interesting. Oh, actually, Leonhard didn't bring instant transfer. He brought Detect. So he's aiming to disable my guard skill so he can maybe kill off something with this Leonhard. Well, for now, I dropped the construct. Landius, Peace of Mind. This way, the construct and Landius are blocking and keeping everybody safe. So that if Landius chooses to attack, he can only kill the construct, right? And same with Zerda. Okay. So now I push Deedlit in and out because she has Tenyo's headdress. So I wanted to trigger her talent so that she could provide 2 buffs, right? And I did get damage dealt plus 20%, and it looks like damage taken decreased by 20%, something like that. So those were the buffs that Deedlit provided to my Landius, I guess. No complaints. So here he comes, Fusion Dark Emperor Sword, right? The thing was, I also had Gospel on my Landius, so even though he Fusion Dark Emperor Sworded, Landius didn't get any debuffs, right? Or, yeah, so he can't get Detect, the Detect debuff, disabled passives. Deedlit, though, cannot trigger Act again for a few turns. So now he charges in, and Leonhard dies. Just like that. So, big mistake on his part, right? Once again, this is the reason why I ran Guardian Infantry. So what ended up happening was my Guardian Infantry killed off his Dark Centurions, and then my Landius killed off his Leonhard, right? Infantry advantage over Lancer Soldiers, Cavalry advantage over Infantry Hero. Boom. So, proper soldier choice, incredibly important. Very, very, very important. So at this point, I finally activate high stakes on my Wilder. And I have Deedlit Gospel herself. So, that was on purpose, okay? Because I knew this would happen. Completely intended. This is a Deedlit who had Desperate Prayer for 15% damage reduction. She was next to Landius, and Landius is providing another 15% reduced damage. So this way, Deedlit was taking 30% reduced damage from this Zerda. Right? So with 30% reduced damage, with Gospel for higher defense, Deedlit, and of course with Desperate Prayer healing my healing my Deedlit up to full hit points before combat began, Zerda can't one-shot my Deedlit. So there we go. Now another character of his has wasted a skill, and at this point, I just start maneuvering forward. So Dark Tinker against a Landius with Desperate Prayer doesn't do much. Rihanna moves up, heals up Landius, and provides some healing to Deedlit. And now, Dark Dragon's Breath provides some buffs to my construct, and I move the construct forward to block. So I'm not going to suicide my construct into Landius, right? So I just block for now. This was my mistake, okay? I should have had Deedlit move into this tile here at this point. I thought I had access to her talent, right? To act again. So I could Sea of Miracles to heal everyone, then move forward into this tile. But only now, after I did it, I realized that I still had the Leonhardt debuff. So I cannot receive act again effects. So Deedlit couldn't block as a result. So, as a result, Zerda, fortunately Zerda goes after my Rowler, killing him off. And that gives me the opportunity to lock down Caniac's party in the back here. So, continuing to guard. And now, Gospel Landius, of course. And the enemy, Zerda, moves back. In the meantime, I'm just moving forward to continue to lock him down. And then Gizarof just completely helps lock him down. So now he's trapped. So Deedlit charges forward, right? Still could not activate Act again. So she just ends her turn in front of Zerda. Annoying. But fortunately, I have Liana, and Liana uses Act again on Deedlit now. So with that, Elven Aura, melee attack. Zerda is taken down by my Deedlit, and his remaining party members are totally trapped. Actually, B-Guy, at this point, I don't think I had the skin yet. I'll double check though. I'm not sure if I had the skin yet during this battle. I do have the skin equipped now. I think. I'll check after this one. In any case though, so at this point, he's totally trapped. I'm just waiting for his character to die off. So I'm just ending turn over and over again, right? Chloe attacks with Discipline. Phallic soldiers do nothing to the soldiers on Landius. So there we go, right? The soldiers tanked all of Chloe's hits. Once again, Guardian Infantry being important here. I did have the sprites? Let's see. Huh! Okay, interesting. Oops, I guess I just didn't equip it. Fair enough. Alright, so there we go. And at this point, Caniac is trapped. He's burning to death this turn. Battle over. That's weird. Not sure why I didn't equip the sprite at that point. In any case though, so that was another battle where Gizarof effectively trapped the enemy and won me the match. Oh yeah, this was in July, so I would have had the skin at that point. In any case though, I know Deedlit has the skin equipped now. Okay, if I click on her now, oh, she doesn't! Now she does! Wow, I don't know how that happened. I really don't. Okay, so now she has the skin. My infantry training ground is total garbage. Pash. JJ. 40, 48, 42. And I don't have any of the techs upgraded properly either, right? Emergency treatment is level 7, right? Overrun tactics is level 7. And most of these techs are level 4, level 3. So this training ground is not very, very good. In addition, the Guardian Infantry aren't even fully upgraded. They're level 8. So sometimes you don't need an extremely powerful training ground if you have the class advantage over the enemy. That's the point. I previously showed a match where I used Stone Colossi to win, right? And my Lancer training ground is garbage. 42% hit points, 40% attack, 42% magic defense, and the Stone Colossus are level 6. But the Stone Colossus, these level 6 Stone Colossus would completely tank any Landius strike if Landius has Royal Cavalry on him. Yes, that's why. Yeah, I changed her class. That was a very recent change. I changed her from infantry to mage. So that explains why her skin got unequipped. Nope. You should, Pash. The class advantage is much bigger than you realize, for sure. So, that battle demonstrates it. Alright. So, that's another Gizarof battle, right? I think there was one more. So that was the Gizarof trap battle. And was that the last one? Oh, this is a more recent one against Sentichai. But I think did I go over this battle yesterday? I feel like I was playing this battle. Yeah, no, I played this battle during yesterday's stream. So I'm gonna skip that. Okay. JJ, just be aware, you have to have the class advantage to use those soldiers. If you don't have the class advantage, you're gonna be screwed. Just so you know. Yep, what B guy said. Okay, so what's next? Gonna go back a little to covered this one. I'm gonna skip this one. I guess I'll cover this Omegalulz battle. Landius soldiers are mind games in general. Because he has lancers, he has infantry, he has cavalry. Okay, so this battle was against Newbie. And he is actually running Oliver here. The 5-star Oliver that he got. So this was a kind of interesting battle to see. I lose Juggler at the start. He loses Juggler at the start. Landius, right? My usual banning of Claret and Knight of Mysteries. And I play my own Landius. He bans Listell and Zerda. This is a very common pick ban so far. And this is the surprise. He played Oliver. I was just like, what? Why? So I ban healers, Wyler, and Iris, and play my Wyler. I thought that maybe he has an extremely powerful Oliver. So if I get rid of the healing, and I get rid of the teleport forward, he probably would be less of a threat. Deedlit and Bozel ban, and he plays Tiaras now. So getting the attack blessing anyways. So he has 3 characters that can buff up damage of Oliver. Right? Now I get rid of the faction buffs. So Zerda, the faction buff, Hiei, another assassin, and play my Liana. Yusuke and Hiei get banned now. And he plays Yusuke. So I get rid of Ares and Illustrial. Just getting rid of all the assassins. And I play Omega. Finally, he gets rid of Luna and Illustrial and plays Luna, leaving me with Gizarof once again and Iris. So you can see over and over again, Gizarof tends to be a last character pick for me, and I have no complaints about that. Really. To get him to 5 stars, you pretty much have to go through the whole story, JJ. Otherwise, like all the way to Act 2, Chapter 15. So this is a 5-star Oliver with 1233 attack. It's not 6 stars yet, so that's why the attack is still kind of but it does have access to Heaven's Guard for the 45% attack increase. And in addition, with Ninjutsu, Move Again, and Repose, right? This is another 10% damage increase, and Ninjutsu gives him the ability to ignore terrain. So that's why he can move 5 tiles into the water at will, even with Heaven's Guards, right? So this is the way to build Oliver, and Oliver can get faction buffed by Landius as well. So. I feel like Newbie was just experimenting and testing out Oliver here. That was my impression. So this time around, interestingly enough, I decided to summon the construct first instead of faction buffing. This means my initial construct is going to be weaker than usual, right? 1163 int, because this is Gizarof without a faction buff yet. And I also move Omega forward. He sends Oliver charging up, so I activate my high stakes. And Oliver comes charging in, kills himself. Okay. So, he did not attack blessing this Oliver, and I guess he thought he did. So the Oliver charging in to attack my Omega killed itself. Right? Of course, it helped that I had Landius for peace of mind, and it helped that I was also on the forest terrain. But just like that, Oliver's dead. So, probably would have been different if he had used attack blessing on turn 1 on Oliver, but he didn't. But in the first place, if he had attack blessing on turn 1, I would not have moved Omega here. The only reason I moved Omega there was because I saw he didn't attack blessing, right? So now I have Omega use Knowing Strike. See, quick comment. The reason I brought Knowing Strike on my Omega is because I knew Newbie would have very high skill, right? So just in case, I made sure to bring Knowing Strike. It actually wasn't as high as I thought it would be, 221. So I still actually had 2 times. But it is possible for Luna to have more skill than Omega can 2 times. She can get more than 250 skill. So in this case, she didn't have it, so I was able to easily one-shot her with my Omega. And just like that, the battle's over. So this was more of an Omegalulz demonstration, really, than an Oliver demonstration. But that's why I called it the Omegalulz battle, right? So just like this is what? 5 characters against 3 now. There's no real point in going over the rest of this battle. It's just gonna take a bit of time to finish. But yeah. Kind of funny. Yeah. I very frequently use my assassins as bait. It actually works out pretty well if they have Wilder's high stakes buff on them. So that was, like I said, that was the Omegalulz battle. What's next? I mean, I'm going to skip this battle because I've never lost a battle where my opponent had no tank against me. Okay? I just have not lost a single battle like that. Probably because my tanks are too hard to kill. Right? So any opponent who runs no tank against me usually loses. So I'm just gonna skip that one. This one would be interesting, I think. Hiei versus Yusuke. Lance is the best budget tank buster. Yeah, I guess so. I won't deny that. So this battle in particular will have, let's see, his party is, I guess, Season 3 or Season 2 meta is what you can call this party. Because Yulia and Elwyn are mostly obsolete now. Both of them, right? So it's a single target strike party. Very, very heavy on single target strikers, right? Elwyn, Yulia, Rachel, Zerida, Deedlit even, Luna. The only AoEs are Bozal and Listell, really. And I guess Rachel kind of being an AoE, but not really. Are you sure you didn't have a tank? I'm pretty sure you had Juggler, B-Guy. You had Sonya. No, you had Estelle. You mobility buffed your characters. Akaya for sure. I remember that. Akaya, Sonya. I'm pretty certain you had a tank that battle. But it's been too long since we fought that one. Alright. So, Juggler ban. I'm not sure why my Alestro got banned. That's first ban. It's the weirdest thing but okay. That's fine. He banned my Juggler and Listell mix. So I got to choose which tank I wanted. I picked Landius. And he played Landius. So I banned Zerida and Listell. Pretty standard so far. I played my Wilder. Zerida and Omega get banned. So that's 3 of my assassins. Or is that all 4? No, 3. Hiei is still around. And my opponent plays Yulia. So Elwyn and Wilder are banned now on his side. Since he played Yulia, I was getting rid of the faction buff, one of them. And I play Hiei. So Yusuke is now lost, so is Luna. Right? Yusuke would faction buff up my Hiei, so it's a smart ban there. And he plays Rachel. So I get rid of Tieris and Liana then. And play Liana. Gizarof and Bozal are now both banned. Very rare to see that, honestly. That they ban my AoE strikers like that. But he plays Iris. So I ban Deedlit and Luna, right? Faction buffers. Faction buffer for Yulia. And Deedlit with Gospel. Leaving him Bozal and Yusuke. And I play Deedlit. And he chooses Yusuke over Bozal. Makes sense. Once again, with Hiei on the field, Bozal is most likely dead to Hiei. Yeah. I mean, it's very rare to see people choose to ban Gizarof and Bozal over Deedlit. I have to say, that is a very, very rare situation. So for now, the usual initial setup of maneuvering forward for both sides. Rachel Gospel on Yulia so that she has maximum stats for attacking since she has no faction buff. This battle actually is also a Wilder showcase as a side note. This is actually a very, very interesting battle. You'll see. So he's maneuvering forward. And I activate high stakes. And he actually uses Legenda Iris on Yulia. So currently Yulia does have... This Yulia at this point has pretty much a faction buff, you can say, right? 20% in 20% defense, 20% magic defense. It has also 20% damage reduction and 20% damage dealt increase. So what I do here is I attempt to kill it. Dragon of Darkness Flame, AoE damage, right? Act again, ignore Guard Strike with a full heal from Wilder. And totally failed to kill this. Totally failed. Not even close. She still had 4,000 hit points. Of course, there are several reasons why. Remember, I actually didn't strengthen my Hiei at this time. So his attack was actually only 1210. With more attack, he might have been able to kill. But without the strengthen, and with Yulia having had 20% damage reduction, And with Landius providing Peace of Mind buff, Yulia just totally tanked that. Totally laughed it off. No, Yulia normally is afraid, but the Landius aura and the 20% damage reduction from Iris kept her alive. That's the point. But with this attack, my Hiei is in my Landius guard range because he didn't choose to attack me. So that was a bonus. If he had had Yulia probably used Godly Menace Strike on my Hiei, Hiei would have died. But he didn't. So I get to activate guard on Landius to protect Hiei. So that was actually a mistake on his part. And now I decide to strengthen Hiei. It's super late, but I do it now. And start healing up Wildlife. So Yulia charges forward. Godly Menace now. Almost dies to my Landius, but not quite. And Godly Menace is now activated, so I got mobility +3 and cannot use guard skills. In the meantime, Sea of Miracles to heal him up a bit. And then I have Elven Aura get used by Deedlit. Blood Shield activates, Deedlit doesn't get the kill. Right? So, normally, if Bloodline Magic, if that doesn't activate, I definitely kill Landius, but because it activated, the 30% chance, I failed to kill him. So Landius survives. AoE hits from Rachel. Actually did a bit more damage than I thought it would. Okay. But with that, I can have Wilder use his tactical retreat and pull me all my characters to safety. So I was actually kind of happy he used Arcane Blast there. Because now all my characters are completely out of range, and I don't have to even worry about Yulia's Godly Menace anymore. So tactical retreat, saving me big time there. By pulling all my characters to safety. Now I start maneuvering forward a little bit again. Right, since I'm safely out of range of most of the attacks, I can start moving up again. Here, I have Hiei use Fist of Mortal Flame against Landius. Because I noticed that since he never gospeled Landius, I'm able to use the Fist of Mortal Flame effectively. So now, Landius has the heal reversal effect on him. Cannot be dispelled for 2 turns. And all damage increased by 15% for 2 turns. So very nice situation there. So then Hiei does his second attack. And via the Hellfire Archers kills off Landius, right? By himself, his damage was not enough to kill Landius. But the Hellfire Archers did enough to finish Landius off. Of course, once again, if this Landius had Swordsmith Metal, would have been a different situation. But getting this first kill was clutch. You know, it should have actually, the first kill should have happened before. But that's the RNG of these battles. In any case though, time to reactivate Gospel on my Landius to protect against Yusuke. The battle's looking pretty smooth overall. And I now have Wilder jump in to finishing off that Landius. So Yulia jumps in to attack. Bloodline. My turn to activate the Blood Shield. So with that activation, Landius doesn't die. My turn to... I should have died there, just like he should have before, but I didn't. And the only thing to mention there is that was there was a big luck element to this attack just now from the Holy Justice because it does dispel 5 buffs. So yeah, I don't know which buff would get removed. If I get the immune to all debuffs removed, I could be in trouble. But I didn't. keep in mind Landius has an insane number of buffs in general. Between his faction buff, between his talent buff, between Peace of Mind, and I had characters providing buffs as well with Tenyo's headdress and so on. So I wasn't too worried about it. I mean, he had maybe a 40% chance of removing my immune to all debuffs effect, and it didn't happen. So taking a look, you can see here, right? Look at all these buffs. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13 buffs, he could remove 5 of them. And the result was he removed my healing before combat in a few others. Yeah. Catapult Wilder does surprisingly well in finishing off weakened targets. He is quite useful in that sense. So let's heal up Landius. And he gets to use the Dark Tincture Strike on my Landius, but doesn't kill. And now I get to heal a bit from Deedlit's Elven Aura. So with the triple healing, Landius is healthy again, right? And also, I'm mostly out of range of his characters anyways. So I have Deedlit start attacking Yulia to weaken her. And now he gets to act first because he has one less character now. So he chooses to mass heal. I just move Deedlit twice to fully heal up my Landius with Sea of Miracles. And now I strengthen my Hiei. So Yulia strikes, kills herself, but heals up to full. She is quite annoying in that sense. But once again, having 3 healers really helps. Right? So Landius is back to full health. And now Hiei, Dragon of Darkness Flame. Right? Act again. This time, single target strike. Down goes Yulia. So remember how I couldn't kill Yulia the first time around, where Yulia had the Iris buff and had the Landius buff? Well, this time around, Yulia falls pretty easily. Right? Same kind of situation, using the Dragon of Darkness Flame followed by a single target strike. But this time around, Yulia does die. And so battle's over. So that one just shows that actually that one's just a very good demonstration of how important, I guess, Landius's faction buff or Landius's Peace of Mind buff and Iris's plus 20% damage reduction can be, right? It can cause characters who should die to not die, which means you can use those characters as potential bait characters to draw the enemy to attack you. So that was this one. I guess there's a few more battles to cover. Mage Deedlit overpowered, win with Thorns, and those would be the last 2, I think. Alright, so 2 more battles to cover. First one, Mage Deedlit. B guy. So this particular battle, let's see, my opponent's box has Leon, it has Renee, it has Lana even. A lot of interesting, unexpected characters, even Chloe. So a whole bunch of characters that I don't usually consider top tier in terms of the current meta, but they can actually be useful, especially Leon. Leon, in that sense, if used properly, can be very similar to Ares in terms of teleporting the enemies out of guard range and so on, so that you can kill them easily. So that's worth mentioning, right? It can lead to situations where you can teleport a character out of range for you to easily kill. You have to be very careful about that. So in any case though, Juggler Band versus Juggler Band, Landius, Listell, and Iris. You know, very weird, right? a healer and Listell. Enemy plays Landius. But I guess he was forcing me to pick a healer early, because ultimately I only have Waller and Liana left. So I pick Waller. If they let me pick Waller, I don't mind picking Waller. So Zerda and Yusuke are next to be banned as a result. Enemy plays Ares, right? So Liana and Tiara is banned, and I just play Liana again. This has been pretty consistently my first 3 picks. Landius, Waller, Liana. I mean, if they let me do it, why not, right? I could very easily replace Liana with Deedlit, but yeah. So, surprisingly, Bozol Gizarof banned this early. He doesn't want me to use an AoE attack team, right? So, and he plays Chloe. So I ban his AoEs, Bozol and Rene. And I play Deedlit at this point. So he's basically forcing me into single target strikes. So given that's the case, for my last pick, I get to pick a character who can ignore guard anyways. So I went for Deedlit first. So now he bans Luna and Illustrial. Bit of a surprise to me. So actually, Illustrial made sense because I have Elven Aura, right? If Deedlit uses Elven Aura, anywhere that Illustrial attacks from close to Deedlit would be considered forest terrain. So then Illustrial could ignore guard attack any of these enemies. So that was why he banned Illustrial. Luna was, I guess, to prevent me from mobility buffing. And he knew that, and so he left me the choice of 2 assassins. So Lana, Deedlit ban for me. I don't want to face multiple healers, the way he let me play 3 healers. And finally, I play Hiei. And he plays Leon. Yeah, I mean, Wilder isn't any good until he's 6 stars, JJ. So the fact of the matter is, only the very, very top tier players have Wilder built. You're not going to face him until maybe gold rank or Langrisser. Alright, so characters moving forward as usual. He actually shifted up, so he's totally avoiding me. He doesn't want an early engagement, I guess. Yeah. Hey, I find people, I mean, it goes faster NRL, so I think streaming replays is the way to go. Because when you play a match, it's like 30 minutes for a match. Whereas streaming the replay, you get to pick the interesting ones, and it takes maybe 10 minutes a match to cover. So it just, yeah, it's just a more interesting way to cover these fights, I feel. Alright, so characters maneuvering forward. I have not activated high stakes yet, I think. Because he shifted north, so there was no reason for me to activate high stakes yet. Slowly moving up with all these healers and characters. And now I do activate high stakes. So, 1 turn later, but high stakes is still used. He activates Chloe's Aurora Ring in response. So we're both, I guess, ready for battle. So I maneuver a little bit forward, and he begins having Ares, Fearless Hurricane, run forward, and Wind Whisper. So, Wind Whisper does nothing to Hiei, as you just saw. And the reason for that is because it only has 1 range, right? So Hiei, with his talent, right, if he's on the edge of a skill span, take no damage this time. And this effect can only trigger once per battle. Well, that was the 1 trigger that I got. So I just have Hiei, Dragon of Darkness Flame, heal up a little bit, act again, single target strike, goodbye, Ares. You know how I keep talking about how people seem to keep suiciding their Ares? This was another example of that. Over and over again. I just don't understand it. He attacked... Ah yeah. Whatever. Next up is Yusuke, but I already have Desperate Prayer up. I already have Gospel up, I think. Oh, I didn't have Gospel on Landius. Unexpectedly, I did not Gospel Landius. So he got... Cannot be healed, applied onto him. I must have messed up. I completely messed up. I guess I had Liana Gospel herself and Deedlit Gospel herself. So Landius didn't have it. Oops. Well, no choice. Teleport Landius to safety. As a result though, goodbye Hiei. So it ends up being a trade. I traded my Hiei to kill the enemy Ares. Oh well, so be it. But at least I got her out of the way. At least I have my Landius in relative safety, and I was able to easily kill off Leon with this melee attack from Deedlit. Right? If this Deedlit was infantry class, Leon would not have died. But because my Deedlit was mage class, I don't have that damage reduction against the cavalry Leon. So with Elven Aura, down goes Leon, just like that. I actually abandoned Hiei a lot. If you've watched my previous videos, and in fact, very often, Hiei doesn't even get off his attack. It's pretty bad. Yeah, as B-Guy said, dies without killing someone. So, I move Landius back. That was to try to get rid of this darn cannot heal yourself debuff. And unfortunately, Yusuke is able to charge in to strike my Deedlit. But, look at that. Deedlit lives. Once again, this was a combination of several factors. Number one, Deedlit herself, right? Her talent gives her 24% int and defense. Number two, she did have Wilder's buff, so the 15% damage reduction. Number three, my Deedlit is really, she is built to be relatively tanky, and that's why she has 9,530 hit points, even in the mage class. And she's running unicorns, right? Unicorns, my unicorns are pretty well upgraded. And then, so the combination of all those factors, and being on the sand dunes for an extra 10% defense, kept my Deedlit alive with 614 hit points. So, properly enchanted, a Deedlit can survive against regular attacks, including a regular attack from the 1607 attack Yusuke. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, most of my games have been Wilder showcases in a lot of ways. So, let's act again. Landius now. And finally, have him reactivate the faction buff so that he's no longer under that effect. And finally, I actually sacrificed my Wilder to provide the buff for him, right? Desperate Prayer. So the point of that was so that my Landius can't get one-shotted here. Unfortunately, I miscalculated. Okay. Total miscalculation. I didn't realize that Liana, A, wasn't in guard range, of course, after I activated faction buff instead of guard, but B, that Liana would not heal enough to be able to survive Yusuke's strike. So suddenly, I lost both of my healers. Wilder is dead, and Liana is dead. So then, I have no choice but to start attacking, right? So Deedlit strike against Landius really doesn't do all that much because it's only Deedlit in her Mage class striking at 2 range. Right? He can easily kill that up. But I have to keep attacking. There is no real choice at this point. So, Deedlit Gospel. I move her there because I know she has the healing skill. So Landius, Peace of Mind. They both still have Wilder's healing at least. Although I sacrifice Wilder. So this battle is surprisingly turning into a very close match. And I'm actually very much behind right now. Once again, Bloodline Magic Armor activates. And makes this Landius ridiculously tanky. He's also kind of slamming into me, but I'm mostly healing all of that up. So now, Sea of Miracles to heal up as best as I can. And then I choose to Gospel Landius. Meanwhile, he activates Aurora Ring. I'm in serious trouble right now, right? Because I have a tank and a semi-healer, but he has a tank healer and a damage dealer. And he's just spending time activating skills and so on. But here, I realized he made a mistake. With his positioning, I was able to block Chloe from getting into the safe tiles. So Chloe is suddenly dead. So suddenly, due to blocking, it's now Landius and Deedlit against Landius and Yusuke. More or less, anyways. And Thorns activated there to crush Yusuke. So, single target strike, Thorns activation, all that damage reflection caused Yusuke to kill himself. I didn't even die, only he did. And so, Chloe gets 1 kill on my Landius, but down she goes. Suddenly it's 2 against 1. Just like that. Right? If he had been patient and attacked that 3 range with his, with Dark Tinker or whatever, he probably would have been fine. But because he got impatient there, suddenly 2 characters are down for him. Yep. Thorns paying off. My Thorns enchant. So now, Deedlit acting again, gospeling herself, trying to provide buffs to my Landius, but now Landius is killed. So now it's Deedlit against Landius. And I start off with Sea of Miracles. So now Deedlit has her Gospel, has the Sea of Miracles buff, and has the int increase of 24% int and defense. 1522 int. Alright. Landius strikes. Deedlit survives that. And then Deedlit does Elven Aura at 2 range and kills off Landius for the first time. And heals up. And then Deedlit, Mage Deedlit, manages to finish off Landius with a melee when he did a melee counterattack. So in the end, Deedlit, Mage Deedlit, actually beat Landius in a one-on-one. And that was a one-on-one where I was damaged too, heavily damaged. Yep, Mage class totally paying off. That was really an example of the Mage class as well. If it was infantry, I 100% lost for me this battle. But the Mage Deedlit with the Royal Cavalry, with the Unicorns, managed to win that fight for me. JJ, if he waited it out, I would have kept healing up. I just used Elven Aura. So Elven Aura would have just let me keep healing up. If he stood there, the next turn I would have healed up 30%. And then I would have had 30% more hit points to attack and finish him. So he could not have just stood there. No. Unless that was the very last turn, but I don't think that was turn 12. That was around turn 10-ish, from what I recall. So, yeah. So, another win with the Mage Deedlit there. And yeah, that was also a... I made mistakes for sure, right? If I had protected Liana, so if I had activated his guard skill on Landius instead of his faction buff, then Liliana would not have died, and I would have definitely won that, I think. But that came down to the wire. It came down to a Thorns activation for me to win. Oh, was it turn 12 out of 12? You know what? Let me just quickly jump in to take a quick peek, because there's only one last battle to cover after this. So I'm just gonna skip this. Well, even if he had waited it out, I would have attacked that turn then. And I still would have killed him, right? So this is turn 11 right now. Turn 11, Sea of Miracles. And then... Oh, wow. You're right. So if he had just ended his turn, he would have won. But because he chose to attack me, he lost. Interesting. Oh, wow. Yeah. So you guys are right. If he had simply clicked end turn, he won. Interesting. Well, I'm not complaining over a free win, that's for sure. Alright. And the very last battle I guess I'll mention... Actually, I'll do a quick coverage of one thing, and then I'll do the very last battle. Okay. And the quick coverage thing is... It's a mistake I constantly make. And it's something that people should be aware of. I probably get more losses to this mistake than anything else. And I think it's from this fight. Let's see. I'm not sure if it is this fight, actually. But let me just jump forward here. Next round? Oh yes, it is this fight. Okay, so first turn, the usual setup. I activated high stakes with Wilder. You know, I'm not sure how Gizarof took some damage. Oh, Gizarof took damage from Lambda. Oh, that actually I should show that actually. Let's just go back to the previous turn. So I have a Gizarof in the Demon class, and he has a Lambda in the Holy class, right? So this is actually kind of interesting. I activate high stakes here with Wilder, and the Holy class Lambda moves up. White Dragon's Breath, boom. Right? Tons of damage dealt to my Gizarof. So my Gizarof is currently 5 stars. So 12,300 hit points, 586 magic defense. Relatively tanky, especially with the damage reduction from Wilder. Right? So he's actually okay. And now I move up, have Liana Gospel and Talent Heal, Gizarof a bit more. So turn 2, he gets to act first. Second AoE attack. Holy Missile. Gizarof lives. 119 hit points. He got trolled pretty hard here. Once again, Wilder, you know, with the Wilder high stakes, keeping my characters alive through things that they shouldn't live through. Right? if I didn't have the 15% damage reduction, Gizarof was dead. But he lived with 119 hit points there. And this is a holy class Lambda too, with the Dwarven Adventurers providing 15% damage increase. So, interesting point there. I now heal him with Liana, and suddenly he's basically full hit points. So Lambda wasted both AoEs. But after this, I massively screw up. So it's my fault that I lose this fight, really. And the way I screw up is very simple. Okay. I do this over and over again, as I mentioned. And what I did was I had... First, this was the first mistake. Okay? I moved Landius forward, but I didn't move him forward far enough, I don't think. Okay. So I could have moved Landius all the way up here if I so wished, but I didn't. I moved them up just to this tile. That was the first mistake. All right. The second mistake then is stupidly having Listell move into here to attack. This would have been fine if I had Landius be able to guard Listell, but I didn't, right? I didn't, if Landius was even one tile further forward, this would have been okay. But because of the way I attacked, Landius's Peace of Mind effect, the special effect of it is that all enemy units within 2 block radius cannot benefit from move again effects. Because of that, Roundabout didn't let me move back. So, as a result, Listell is out of Landius' guard range, Listell gets single target struck by Yusuke, Listell dies, battle over. Right? So, very, very stupid mistake on my part, flat out. If Landius was one tile closer, suddenly, I would have been fine. But because Landius was not one tile closer, I lose Listell. Yeah, I forget about that 3C all the time. I've lost more battles to that than almost anything else. Like having Omega get Peace of Mind and unable to retreat, having Listell get Peace of Mind and unable to retreat, over and over again. It happens to me, like over and over again. So, something I wanted to mention. I've lost so many battles to that skill. It's ridiculous. No joke. Just of these 35 losses, at least 10 are due to that. There's actually quite a few. If I actually went through these, there's quite a few of the battles here that are losses like that. Okay. So, with that one mentioned, I guess the very final battle I'll cover is basically another win by Thorns. Yeah. Yes, Mystery Knight is affected by that as well. Anyone who acts again afterwards, if you're in range, it kicks in. Yeah, everything outside of actual act again effects, like Liana. Okay, so as a side note, it even kicks in against Hiei and against Leonhard. I've actually done that before. I send Hiei forward, use his Dragon of Darkness Flame within 2 blocks of the enemy Landius, and then get locked down and unable to move. Pretty sure that's happened before for me. Not 100% now that I think about it, but I'm pretty sure that does kick in there too. So normally make sure your Hiei, if you use Dragon of Darkness Flame, is outside of that range. Alright, so the last battle against Sieghart. Yeah, Claret isn't affected. You're right. Claret's one of the few. Not sure why in the case of Claret. Maybe it's because it's a talent effect rather than a skill effect. Okay, so this battle is against Sieghart. Once again, I'm seeing another Yulia. Okay. But other than the Yulia, his box is meta. Right? Rachel, Tiaris would be the two unique characters, or the characters that can be rotated. But Yulia is the only big surprise here. Everything else is completely meta. And in terms of pick ban, I actually chose to ban his Landius first, because he banned my Landius first. I don't know. Sometimes when people do that, I just do the exact same thing. So I lose Listell and Zerda. I ban... Oh, he plays Juggler first, of course. And I ban his Zerda and Listell. I play Wilder. Pretty consistent second pick for me. He bans my Hiei and Luna. And plays Deedlit. So I ban Yulia and Luna. I just didn't want to face against Yulia with Juggler, right? The 5 buff Dispel can be very, very deadly. So I just want to get rid of that one. And I play Gizarof next. So he bans Listell and Bozel, right? The two characters that, well, Listell for good reason. Bozel because Bozel's one of the characters that gets faction buffed by my Gizarof. And he plays Tiaris at this point. So next, Claret and Mystery Knight, I ban at that point. Probably should have banned, looking at this now, I probably should have banned maybe Liana and Rachel. Not sure. Because Tiaris, after all, does have the, she does have guard skill. So she can make it so that Yusuke would have no effect. So I did play Yusuke though. Yeah, so that's why I said maybe I should have banned Liana and Rachel here. In any case though, he actually chose to play Ares. But he actually has all of his healers. Tiaris, Iris, Liana, and Rachel. All of them, and even Deedlit, they all provide immunity to cannot be healed debuffs. So in some ways, the Yusuke pick was kind of iffy, frankly speaking. Could have brought in Deedlit, could have brought in Omega. There were other options I could have brought. In any case, that was what I picked. He picked Ares. I now ban his Liana and Bozel and play my Liana while he plays Rachel. So 2 gospel characters. He doesn't have to really worry about my Yusuke. But with this kind of setup, Gizarof's faction buff does affect Yusuke. So I'm able to have Yusuke run Dark Tinker and Spirit Gun as a result. Yeah, no, yep, JJ, there were a lot of other options I could have picked over Yusuke. For sure. And so, on his side, he activates Triton. I Psychic Eruption. The one thing is, he doesn't really have a faction buff on his side, right? So if I had actually brought Deedlit, he would have been very vulnerable into magic attacks, right? So I'm not quite sure why I didn't pick Deedlit in hindsight. In any case, Gizarof faction buff. It buffs both Yusuke and Juggler. And as usual, high stakes. And then finally, I provide healing to Wilder to heal him up to full. And he brings shield. So he has a lot of different heals, right? Shield does provide that immunity to healing reduction effects or whatever. Rachel this way can gospel herself. Deedlit this way can also gospel herself. And so his whole party is kind of buffed, except for Juggler, missing the magic defense increase, more or less. Yeah, B-Guy, that's kind of why I went for this combo, but at the same time, it probably wasn't the best combo for this particular fight, given what I'm facing and so on. So he's just hanging back because he's trying to waste time while my Wilder buff slowly wears out. So I start things off with Gizarof launching his AoE, and the whole point of that was really to buff up these constructs, right? Get as many buffs on the constructs as possible. Meanwhile, he's continuing to hold back. Triton. I now run forth with... I actually Sacred Beast him on the spot, okay? And that was purely to do what I just did there. To damage both Rachel and Ares while activating my guard skills. And he runs back, avoiding me. And activates shield to make sure Juggler is protected against my Yusuke. But Gizarof does magic attacks. So even though he retreated Ares, Gizarof is able to kill off Rachel in a ranged attack. So he made a mistake there for sure, I think. Right? If he had healed up Rachel with Tiaris, Rachel wouldn't have died. So I continue to have my magic attackers do damage to his characters, right? Ignoring Juggler. And now I act again my Wiler so that I have more actions with various characters. He heals Ares, right, getting characters healthy. And I just have... I start with Yusuke using his first attack skill, which is the Spirit Gun attack, right? But honestly, Tiaris' healing light is keeping Juggler healthy. I didn't think I would be able to do much to him. So I kept Dark Tincture available for use. Noble Charge on my Juggler. Okay. Juggler just shrugs it off and laughs. And it's worth noting that... Just waiting for this to finish. Fearless Hurricane still doesn't kill anyone. And it's worth noting, as I said, I actually lost my Triton buff. Both parts of it. So I only have one guard range, and I only have, and I didn't have, I wasn't considered in water. So the lobsters were not in water, but despite that, Juggler still tanked the hit completely. Okay. So this was an Ares with Attack Blessing. So this is Ares with Attack Blessing, with Noble Charge, having dispelled my Triton buffs, Landius still tanked it. Partly because, of course, I still kept the damage taken reduction of 15%. That definitely helped, right? If I lost that part as well, I think Juggler would have died. But come on, 3 buffs, right? He would have had to target all 3 buffs. The being in water buff, the minus 15% damage reduction buff, and so on, for him to have actually killed me, which is highly unlikely. But once again, you know, this is an Ares with 1740 attack. This is an Ares with Attack Blessing. He still could not kill my Juggler. So for now, I just chose to have my Juggler use Beast Shock. I wasn't sure what I was thinking there, honestly. I actually don't know what I was thinking there. Why use the Beast Shock? But in any case, I just tactical retreat back. Unfortunately, that was another interesting thing to see, okay? This, once again, Ares for that attack still had Attack Blessing and his 3C buffs. Or did he? Oh no. He lost Attack Blessing. He just had plus 20% attack. And he had Ride the Wind. Okay, so he was getting plus 20% damage anyways for this attack. But despite that, he couldn't kill my Gizarof. Okay. Ragnarok didn't kick in. That was part of the reason I lived, of course. Ragnarok did not kick in because Juggler provided immunity to fixed damage. But still, you would think Gizarof, a 5-star Gizarof would die to Ares in this kind of situation. And he didn't. So, provide healing to Gizarof. Enemy juggler uses Sacred Beast Hymn. I now have my construct run around and attack the enemy Deedlit. And deterring components does some damage to her. Extra damage, whatever. And then Gizarof reactivates the faction buff. Meanwhile, Deedlit just moves up. Wailer strikes the enemy juggler and does apply the mobility debuff on him. Right? So this really should be a juggler with Swords with Metal. That I can mobility debuff it, even though it has a skill increase. But he can remove it very easily with Tiaras. So I have my Triton get activated by my juggler. Neither side really has a tank buster. So this is just turning into a slugfest. I don't know what you want to call it. A battle in the mud? Whatever. But this one surprised me. He was able to kill off my Yusuke because my juggler's 3C buff had worn off. Sacred Beast Hymn was no longer active. So when Deedlit came in with Attack Blessing, she totally ignored... Yusuke was not guarded. And so Deedlit just one-shotted Yusuke. So suddenly, I'm down to 4 characters. Although he also only has 4. But I'm able to apply a mobility debuff onto this juggler for now, I guess. But he ended turn, so the mobility debuff didn't do anything. Right. And Tiaras continue to keep this juggler super healthy. Right. Not much I can do about it. So now I maneuver forward a little bit, like so. Juggler, activating Triton. The enemy beast shocks my Gizarof and actually kills him off. So that was my fault by moving my juggler from here to here. I was suddenly in range for him to beast shock. If I had stayed down here, then juggler, even if he beast shocked, that attack would have been guarded. Right? So I lost my Gizarof at this point. But I do have 2 constructs now. And the other factor of this is his 3C has now worn off. Sacred Beast Hymn. So now I can actually attack at 2 range and so on against these characters. So it wasn't exactly a bad thing. Next, once again, a usual strategy for me. Suicide Wailer to activate his 3C one more time. Enemy has Deedlit, get healed. And I continue to attack this Deedlit. And both characters, both Liana and Wailer, have Goddess Left Hand, right? So the second Goddess Left Hand reduced Deedlit's mobility to 1. So she is currently unable to move to safety, even though she has unicorns. Even though she has unicorns, she's now dead because she is completely trapped in the poison. So Ares goes after one of my constructs, the vulnerable one, wiping it out. And he actually teleports me around a bit. due to that. So I have no choice but to move my construct into this tile to continue to block this Deedlit. So he tries to heal the Deedlit, removing that buff to try to get her to safety. And I respond by having Liena range attack once more. So with that range attack once more, Deedlit once again down to 1 mobility. She's finally dead. No way to save her now. So enemy Deedlit does strike my construct, and the construct lives with 300 or so hit points. Go construct, 374 hit points, surviving the attack from Deedlit. Actually, looking at that now, if he had melee ranged attack my Deedlit, or my construct was probably dead. That was his mistake, right? When you do a range attack with Deedlit, the range attack actually has some of the soldiers waste their strikes, I think. Oh wait, no, never mind. The construct has no soldiers. That's disregard what I just said. The construct has no soldiers, so all the attacks land on the construct anyways. So yeah, it's fine. What he did was right. So now, I have Juggler, Beast Shock Tiaris. And with that Beast Shock, Tiaris can't move, and she's dead. However, he responded with Ares blocking my Liena's path to safety. So suddenly my Liena is also dead. So, bye Liena, it was nice knowing you. It is now Ares and Juggler against my Juggler. But I was able to use Sacred Beast him one more time. And the reason for I was able to use Sacred Beast him one more time even though was because of Gizarof. Right? Gizarof allowing me to reactivate Sacred Beast him to teleport and regain all these buffs. Because Gizarof, when characters die, right, the cooldown of other characters is reduced. So I will have, I guess, Sacred Beast him for the next turn or two. So for now, whatever. Gizarof, right? I have my Juggler attack. It's now the very last turn. My Sacred Beast him has now worn off. But I do reactivate Triton. And Sieghart now begins his assault. Noble Charge removes my Triton buff. And Juggler takes a whole bunch of damage because he no longer has Triton. But, so, almost dead, right? No buffs, 5,969 hit points, 123 hit points on the lobsters. Barely alive at this point. And then Juggler here attacked me. And look at this. Look at the damage difference. 267k against 265k. The only reason I won was because my Juggler activated Thorns against the enemy Ares. If I did not activate Thorns, I would not have had more damage than he did. So I won once again by a luck trigger. If Thorns didn't activate against Ares, he would have had more damage than me and he would have won. But because my Juggler activated Thorns when his Ares attacked, he took enough damage for me to have slightly more damage than he did. And so I won. He really, really did get robbed by my Thorns enchant, in other words. Yep. So, over and over again, we see matches where I win because of the Thorns enchants, right? We saw it when Landius killed Yusuke in one match because he had Thorns enchant. We saw it just now where Juggler activated Thorns and gave me just slightly more damage than he did. or he would have won, right? So over and over again, Thorns has been a great enchant for me for PvP purposes. Alright, so that is the last battle I'm covering in this video. So I'm going to add timestamps to this video later for people who are going to be watching this in the future. And yeah, so thanks for watching everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. Well, I mean, Steel makes your characters tougher for sure. But if your characters can survive like mines do, Thorns can often win you the fight if your opponent can't kill all your heroes. I'm just saying. So, yeah, and right now, as a side note, my juggler still doesn't have perfect enchants. I'm still re-enchanting him. I'm aiming for better enchants on these two, because right now, this one gives around 23% out of a maximum 45%, and this one gives also around 23% with the 10 magic defense out of the maximum 45 potentially. So there's work for me to do in terms of improving my juggler's survivability, if I so wish. Right? Alright, so that was the final point I wanted to say. Thanks again for watching, everyone.